Tambulanga sitya Romusayo Guayika Natukulada Echigambo cho Yesu Mwemuli Amanyi Agogega Nkuma Bulijo Agogega Kumantambulanga sitya Tambulanga sitya Oromusayo Guayika Natukulada Echigambo cho Yesu Mwemuli Amanyi Gogeka Nkuma Bulijo Agogeka Kuma Tambulanga sitya Tambulanga sitya Oromusayo Guayika Natukulada Echigambo cho Yesu Mwemuli Amanyi Agogega Nkuma Bulijo Agogega Nkuma Bulijo Agogega Nkuma Tambulanga sitya Tambulanga sitya Olomusayo Guayika Natukulada Heavenly Father, Echigambo cho Yesu welcome in this place, O God. Mwemuli Amanyi Agogega Nkuma Bulijo Agogega Nkuma. You are Yahweh, 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 Alpha and Omega. You are Yahweh, Alpha and Omega. You are Yahweh, 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 Alpha and Omega. 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 Hey. I never lost. I've never seen you look so pretty as you're looking tonight.
You're far too kind. Maybe it's the glory of the Lord. Glory of the sovereign God.
I've never seen you shine so bright.
Feeling poetic, aren't we?
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Oneness. I am fine, blessed, and highly favored.
Hallelujah to the Lamb who sits on the throne.
I'm always amazed. I'm amazed by God who sets us up that when you're aware of what God is doing, you have no reason to glory in yourself, because there are moves in your life where you are just in a certain place at a certain time and you meet someone that blesses you. How do you glory? I was thinking to myself yesterday as I was driving back home about this idea of insisinkano. I don't know what it translates into.
An encounter.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's an encounter. Surprised that the girl from Wood.
Because it was interesting.
It's an encounter.
As I was thinking about it, the closest word I would get to was meeting. But meeting seemed to be insufficient.
Yeah, it's an encounter. Doesn't leave you the same.
But then also is a part of the meeting.
Yeah.
There's a waliwo Katonda akusisinkanya abantu. There's a God that gets you to, puts you
in the right place at the right time to meet someone, to have an
certain
encounter.
people. To have an encounter.
The meeting, for you to have an encounter, there has to be a meeting.
But that for me is what blew my mind. That a difference of moving from one level to the next is just a meeting away. It's just a meeting away. For God to change one story is just a meeting away. And this speaks to the relevance of to be plugged into the Spirit. Because you'll be led in a certain place at a certain time. And there's someone walking, Jesus is walking on the road, and for as long as you are in that place at that time, you'll encounter him. Yeah. And it brings me to another interesting idea. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday. He's a tailor. He tailors suits. And I was telling him, in the world today of social media, you should be posting something on your status every single day. Every single day. And I've seen a couple of individuals who sell certain products. And every time I go to my WhatsApp status, they're there. And every once in a while, I just look and see, what do they have today? And the brilliance I saw in that one is if they post every single day, one day what they're posting will meet my need. That one time when I'm looking for something, because they've been diligent and consistent, they will meet my need. It's still about meetings and encounters. Brings me to another idea that I've been meditating on, of consistency. How hard consistency is. You see, success is not a mystery. I think the hardest part about success is the character demanded for success. Is the person who shows up every day. Every day. I thank God for the grace to do this podcast every week.
Amen.
There's certain moments where I feel, man, it's work. You prepare yourself in the morning. You come and start setting up things. Get in time of prayer to prepare our vessels and sit down and have these conversations. Then go back home and figure out what we'll eat. Tired, exhausted. Then before the week ends, take off time to edit it. Watch through the entire episode. Then go through it again while cutting it. Every week. Consistency. But in that consistency, you're brought close to the encounter. And I was telling that gentleman about that man at the well, where the angel used to come every once in a while and stir up the waters. And every time he would go in, would be healed. For a man who wants that encounter, the best place for him is to be by the well every day. Because no one knows the time.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows the day. No one knows the month. The best thing for you is to be ready, to show up every single day. A certain man, the late Steve Jobs said, I think he mentioned about living every day like it's going to be your last. Because one day eventually it will be.
Yeah.
But nothing catches you by surprise if you're ready every single day. And it connects to the idea of last episode of procrastination. That whatever you need to get done, do it now. But you see, the power of tapping into that encounter when the angel of the Lord comes by the well, you want to be by the well every day. And the funniest thing is the people who are inconsistent. The time they actually leave the well is when they hear, wait, the angel came and stirred up the waters. And then they start coming again. And then when they decide to go, the angel came and stirred up the waters. You never know. A song came to my heart, and I was trying to understand how it connects to this conversation. Saagala onkyalire naye njagala otuule nga mu nnyumba yange. Mukama saagala onkyalire naye njagala otuule nga mu nnyumba yange. There are some of us who visit the Lord. We have not made our habitation in him. There are people who wait to get revelation at the time when they are praying. But the people who walk with God every single day. And
they're receiving revelation every single day.
yes. The people who they plug into God on Sunday and they wonder why they're not seeing him. They go to the well on Sunday. They go to the well on Sunday. And they wonder why it's not working for them. But there's something about when you lay your bed by the well. You lay your bed by the well.
And you wait.
Not wait and live in him. You see, it's the difference of people who are looking for a fix as opposed to people who are living. You see, the people who seek God for the issues of their lives. But there are people who seek God in the sense that you're all life. What?
I
want. You're all I ever needed.
It's not a seasonal desire.
It's not a time thing. It's not a moment thing. It's not an issue thing.
It's a forever thing.
It is the place where you have no problems and you're still by the well. Where you have no problems but you're still at the well.
Wow. Preacher.
I met a gentleman yesterday that said something I thought was quite interesting. And it sort of alluded to this idea where I got to see like as though a problem is progress. This idea where a problem is progress.
That was his perspective.
That's what I saw from what he shared. And the way he broke it down is that a problem can be solved. Now, the worst thing people find themselves in is in a situation. A situation, you see, and it takes me to something else I was reading about, I think, a week ago. I was trying to understand what's the difference between a disease, a sickness, and an illness. An illness is ill health. And I thought about the other day, why do we call it mental? Is it a mental illness or a mental sickness?
Mm-hmm. I think it depends.
You see? But so you start to realize if you're ill and it's a particular disease, you're already problem solved. If they know that disease you're suffering from, that's problem solved.
Because they can find a solution.
They can find a solution. The worst part is someone has an illness. But you know the people have sick leave and not ill leave?
Mm-hmm.
There's a mystery to wording there. What's the difference between sickness and illness?
Sickness hasn't yet been diagnosed.
But you have sick leave.
Yeah, you have sick leave because, well, semantics. But I think you have sick leave because you need a little more time to get through whatever it is that you're going through. Could be that it hasn't fully been diagnosed. It could be that it has been diagnosed.
And I digress. But
your mind isn't like...
but the idea was fascinating about that you can be in a situation And I think that's also came into our marriage. I think I saw those layers, let me call them layers to deliverance in our marriage. I remember there were times where we were fighting and we would get into back and forths, and I didn't know I didn't know what I was dealing with. I didn't know what I was dealing with. So all I was there is trying to find direction. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was me. I'm searching myself. I'm wondering, is it her? Or is it a spirit? Or is it
Both.
a family thing? You get? Now that's a situation where you don't even know what you don't know.
But you're just fighting.
Yes. You're trying to survive.
Just fighting so you can breathe.
Yes. But you don't know what you're dealing with. It is an enemy attacking you, and you don't know where they're coming from. You cannot see them. You just see things hitting you left, right. Actually, you can imagine this visual. It's something you can find in a scary movie where someone gets slapped on the left and they turn, they see nothing, then they get slapped at the back, they turn, they see nothing, they're slapped in the forehead, they turn, they see nothing. That's a place on your situation. Things are hitting you and you don't have a grip on them. You don't know what you're dealing with. And that's what that happens with doctors. You find someone is dealing with an illness and the doctors are trying to treat this one, this other thing shows up. They're trying to fix this one, another thing shows up. And they don't have a grip on what they're dealing with. They're in a situation. And I saw in our relationship when I actually got a diagnosis for what the disease was.
What did you call the disease?
Respect and love. Oh, the other thing is, in our language, is intimacy and status. Yes. So the woman's desire for intimacy, which is in relation to love. And
The
now,
man's desire for
how
respect.
would Felix get to this idea that what I'm dealing with is intimacy? How would my logical mind encounter such an intangible idea that is so common among women and unknown to me throughout my existence as a man? And then I understood that my wife didn't understand a man's desire for status or relation on the basis of status and hierarchy, where the Bible told her to respect. When I understood those things, I understood that my wife can say so many words because, and the way to deal with it is show love, not explain it. She comes a rant about something, and all she expects is that you show that you care.
And how do you deal with her silence?
Her silence.
Silence
doesn't
can
really,
be very loud as
her
well.
silence hasn't given me much headache. I think I'm more burdened by her words and her actions than her silence. I think I think because one of the things I learned, I think I've wired myself to, is the management by crisis in a shape or form. I like to solve problems. That's why most times when you come to me, I say, what problem are we solving?
And just to take you back to silence and words, it's interesting when you say that my silence doesn't bother you. That's my interpretation of it. Yeah. My words are more the problem. And the reason I find that fascinating is because, and the reverse is true. Reverse in the sense that my silence bothers me and should bother me. Because in my silence, just because I'm not speaking or saying anything, does not mean that I'm not thinking. And those thoughts, more often than not, the thoughts that come to me in the moments of silence are not Philippians 4 thoughts. They are not noble. They are not praiseworthy. And eventually it is those thoughts that give birth to some of the most destructive actions and behavior. And in like manner, or the reverse, and why my words bother you, is because, especially in those moments, this is mostly in the time of conflict and disagreement, it is because that once they're spoken, sometimes they'll cut deep, they're thoughtless, and once they're spoken, they can't be taken back. And I think that is why we're admonished to be wise, that we do not tear down our homes or our houses by ourselves. It's so easy to accuse. It's so easy to find someone else to blame for why your marriage is struggling or why your marriage is falling apart. But if you were honest enough, and if you did a retrospective of every word that comes out of your mouth, especially in the moments of discomfort, the moments of anger, but also the moments where you're not really thinking. You know, we jest a lot. Sometimes we crack jokes a lot. And there are certain things that we say in those moments, but we don't realize that when we speak, we are giving birth to something. There's so much power in the words that we say, both to build and to destroy. And many times, if we looked back, we'll realize that we destroyed. We did were more destructive than constructive in our words. It is a mother who, in a time of anger, and even as I say this, I say it to myself, in a time of anger, maybe as you're dealing with your errant child or a child who's really disappointed you, you speak words over their lives. You call them, "Hey, mwana go, bachi," and then you wonder why over time the things that you've said get reinforced in that child's life. It is because you have loosely exercised the power of your tongue to create. It's the things that we say to our husbands sometimes that crush their spirits. Man is struggling to keep his house afloat. He's struggling to put food on the table. Sometimes he's struggling to find a job, to make things work. And he truly is doing his best. And things just aren't working out. And all it takes is his wife telling him, "But you're such a useless person. Why can't you be like other guys? Why can't you go look for a job?" And I've encountered some of those stories, and they're quite sad, where if a woman or a wife in her desperate state will tell you, "I just wish you could try harder." But she doesn't really understand that he is trying.
And I have actually a story to that.
You have a story to that?
Yes, there's someone I know. I don't know if I shared it. I think he asked the wife, the mother of his children, they hadn't been married, why she stuck with him amidst all his struggles. And she told him, "How can I leave a rich man like you?" And it cut him deeply.
In a beautiful way.
In a beautiful way. And I think he had to excuse himself to step out.
So that she doesn't see his tears.
Doesn't hit him. Because she called out greatness in him.
Yeah.
And interestingly, yesterday he gave me the budget for his wedding.
Oh, he's getting
Yes.
married.
Yes. And
He's marrying. Sorry.
yes. And in that experience, I think is like, you know what? This is someone.
That I want to spend the
Yes.
rest of my life
He
with.
felt indebted to do right by her, by how she has stood with him.
And what's interesting is, while it might be a sense of indebtedness, that might very well be the beginning of his greatness. Because if she could call out wealth where there was none and all he saw was struggle, how much more?
I may dare say that's what the proverb meant. He who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from God. At one
It's
moment you
beautiful.
find the wife.
Before you wife her.
Yes, but is the wife found when she's walking, or is the wife found when she feeds your sheep? In the last episode you shared about was it Rebecca, and how she offered
to water the camels.
yes. So, at what point is the wife? When do you meet the wife? When she's seated by when she's, so you start to realize, I dare say, that a wife is made manifest in her actions.
The subconscious actions. Not because it is also possible for someone, and I think it's the way of the world a lot today, where they talk about positioning yourself.
Yes.
There's something just fundamentally wrong with positioning yourself.
You see, the best thing in life is it's often a conversation in the world of product development. There are people who create fake products and try to market them loudly. But people who just create great products. And that's my belief. That if you are the best human being, is that it will do better marketing for you than anything, any positioning you'll do. I'll tell you about, I mentioned at that time, the gentleman I met who told me that of all the people he had worked with in marketing, you are the one of the few who had never
Thank you.
never asked him for a kickback. Can you imagine? I don't know what his statement says of women in marketing.
I think it's not just women. I think it's...
No, we're talking about finding a wife.
Okay, finding a wife. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You get? Now, in that action alone, you are made manifest. You are made manifest. You get? I remember when I was, before we actually got married, he used to send me food at my apartment. You get? He used to send me food. Now, it looks a simple thing, but if it's not in you, it's so far away. You see, that's the reality about people. We cannot hide. That's why the best thing you can do is be a good person. Yeah. Because you can't hide if you are not good.
You don't just wake up and water a stranger's camels.
Exactly.
Give him water and then feed his camels.
You get tired.
You can't
Yes.
keep it up.
Yes. Yes. That's why they say do what you love and you won't have work a day in your life. That's why I may say marry a woman you love and you won't try to learn to love.
Because it's difficult. It's difficult trying to learn to love. Yeah, it's...
So the question was, when do you find a wife? A wife is not found by the pretty woman. And I think I was talking to a young man, I think yesterday, and he was telling me that there's this woman he has his eyes on. He has set his eyes on. And what hit me was still living with his parents. I was like, you can't see her when you're still at your parents. Because when you have food at your parents, when you have your rent paid, you're not going to see the wife.
Ah, interesting.
Yes. The wife may have better manifestation when you're in a certain state of the wilderness.
And she shows up
Yes.
for you.
Yes. There's a woman who's going to ask you for a new phone while you don't have food. And now for me, you got to go. Such foolery, I would not entertain. And I could never date a woman who's looking to a man to buy her things. And yet I'm a very generous man. But when you actually, if you demand it of me, you take away my generosity. Because what I gave you was because you asked.
Not necessarily.
Then where is my generosity displayed? That's the same way about God's grace.
Mm-hmm.
If you are saved because of the works you did, then where is God's
There's no room
grace?
for grace.
You see? So the wife is revealed. I'll give you an example. Before I got married and I was staying in Chihuatule, you're not the only lady that came to my house. But I think you're the only one who cooked in the house. Except for the lady I used to pay to cook.
I should have demanded for some pay.
Yes.
Anyway.
So, but that's amazing. You get? And then you find some people actually are come to cook as a way of positioning. And now that's how they'll get even frustrated. The moment you do anything,
We're expecting a reward, or an exchange.
You've corrupted it. And the power is because when you do something by engineered works, there will be no spirit to it. You'll be like those guys who try to rebuke out a spirit and it tells them, Jesus, we know, Paul, we know who are you. So they're just imitating actions without the power. Their actions are not potent. And that's the problem with many of us. We've women are trying to play wife.
That's actually the word.
Yes. So that they can get married. So they are engineering as opposed to being. Get closer to God and you grow into a wife and you'll be seen.
You'll actually be seen by the right person.
By the right person.
The one who has the eye to see. Because not everyone has the ability to see past.
And there's
flesh.
something amazing about that. I've not encountered it twice on the dining table. Where I would be in my head just thinking about asking you to pour me some juice in the glass. And that's when you remember there's no juice in my glass and you pick the jug to pour it in. I've seen it twice. And it's fascinating. And I think that is the place of oneness. Yes. There's a place on oneness where you don't have to be told. Instinctive. It's a place where your instincts are present. That you can actually offer something
that someone was thinking
that is needed in that time without even any measure. How did you know? That's what people will say. How did you know? Because you are plugged in your if I had any doubts,
the frequency was aligned.
Yes.
So I remember the first time you pointed, I was like, okay, interesting.
Yes.
Then even the second time I think was yesterday.
Yes.
I was like, oh wait. Then you said, I was just thinking about.
Yes.
It's like, okay, that's quite interesting. And this morning, as I was trying to organize the kitchen a bit before we came, I was reminded of that moment in the hotel room at Serena as I was getting ready for our wedding in the morning. And I was writing you this little note. And the words came back to me so clearly. Dearest Felix. Now they've gone. Dearest Felix, when I say this is the day that the Lord has made, and I choose to be...
I'm truly glad.
I'm truly glad. These are not just words, but it's how I feel about today, the day you and I become one. And I remember thinking to myself, even this morning, I was like, I wrote those words on the day we were getting married, and I probably did not understand to some extent what oneness really meant and at what point you actually become one.
Yeah.
But then when I was thinking about it this morning, I realized that the moment we actually decided, or the moment you purposed and decided to wife me, let me use that word, and we started working towards that actual event, which was really the event where everyone came in and witnessed, and it was a whole celebration. We actually became one in that moment. Heavens recognized us as one. And the oneness is a oneness of spirit. It's a oneness of purpose. From that moment on, my life ceased to be my own. My desires ceased to be my own. My plans ceased to be my own. Everything had to be aligned to you and ultimately to God's plans and God's purpose and God's direction and everything. And I think that is why, even as I was delivering my speech, I broke down, because the weight of what I was saying, the submitting myself wholly, moving away from everything that I knew and who I was and my desires and all my plans, and boy, did I have many, and stepping into this unknown territory that was my greatest act of faith. It was such a profound act of faith, and I didn't even think about it then because I didn't know where we were going. How could I have possibly known? I didn't know what God's plans were. I didn't know the depth and the breadth and the extent to which God was going to use you, and do whatever it is that He wants to do in your life. But here I was, laying aside everything that I knew and everything that I had confidence in to be part of this big, grand plan that God has for your life. And if that hadn't scared me, I'd probably figure that I wasn't making the right decision. Yeah, and then I look back now and I'm glad that I made that decision. I am glad that I had that encounter with you on one fine Monday morning in my random look when I jumped on a border and I came to meet you 3 months after you desired to meet me, after you had said you wanted to meet me. And I am glad that I had that encounter, that meeting resulted in an encounter. Because in meeting you, I encountered God in a different way. The God that I had been seeking in my darkest moments for years, I encountered through one meeting. And sometimes all it takes is just one meeting. All it takes is just one encounter. All Esther needed was one night with the king. Just one night. And that kick-started a whole host of things in her life. Who could have known that this orphan girl would one day be the one that, through whom, by her hand, a whole nation is saved. So I think for me, what that says is that we ought to live our lives not like random people. We're not just here randomly, because you never know. You never know when you'll have that encounter. But you ought to be ready. And when I say ready, it's not brain ready, it's not head ready. It is heart ready, it is spirit ready. It is me coming to meet a random stranger who just happened to say they were my fan, and I carry a gift. I carry a gift. I honored this person before they even became my husband, before I even knew they were going to be my husband. It is one thing for me to buy a gift as a way of positioning myself and trying to be generous. You know what I mean?
What actually here there is that it's very likely what you had was a leading.
It was
but
a
if your
leading.
character was a certain way, it would cut out the leading.
I'd be like, why? How? How do I start taking a gift to this guy? Who is he? I haven't even met him. I don't know him. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that was one of the few moments that I didn't argue with myself. I could have argued. I'm like, first of all, who carries something for a guy she's never met? What if the guy thinks I'm trying too hard? What if the guy, and this is a guy I've never even seen. A guy I've never met, a guy I've never seen. You know what I mean? But I followed the leading, and I bought a gift. And I bought a gift months before I even came to meet you, because I met you in January. I bought the gift in October. The very moment I received the word of, there is this guy and he wants to meet you and da. And I was like, I'm busy. Can I be take a Muruzungu even then? But I suppose the timing wasn't right. I'll meet him. I don't know when I'll meet him, but maybe I'll make the time sometime. But I felt a leading to buy a gift and keep it.
And there's something I feel there. I believe in destiny. That our lives were mapped out before we even existed. And our place is to allow to be led by the Spirit of God. And every decision in our lives, how we make it, defines whether we are quickening toward destiny or we are going offside. So it's very likely you wouldn't have felt an opening to meet any person. But for this one, there was a certain leading to meet them. But now, if your character was you are not hearing, or you had a lot of self that formed your outlook, then you would not obey.
Yeah.
And by not obeying, you would act contrary.
That is so true.
And you wouldn't know that what you are praying for, the angel is going to come and stop the waters. And that is why it's important to me to not live in carnally, to always try to see the things in the lens of God. If you understand humility, if you're a humble person, there are decisions you'll do that a non-humble person won't do. So very likely the Spirit will lead you on a path where humility is the way you can obey. But if you can't afford humility, you won't take that path. There are things where patience is what you need. If you're not patient, you won't follow that path. If the things where self-control is what you need, if you're not self-controlled, you won't take that path. And as you're speaking, I realized you talked about the faith on this journey of oneness. And one of the things that reminded me was the song I love. When faith demands a sacrifice, I'll worship even then, surrendering the dearest things in life. And if devotion costs me all, He'll find me faithful to His call. When faith demands a sacrifice. And in all honesty, I think the joy of our marriage is partly to your sacrifice. It is not easy to surrender oneself. It's not easy to accept leadership. It's not easy to accept authority. And for that, you're better than me. You have a revelation deeper than I do.
Oh, but it is so rewarding.
Yes.
It is so rewarding. It's unbelievable.
Yes. And the power is to now find joy in that place. And many people have not gotten into, can I say, the bliss of marriage, because they've failed to let go and trust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really about trust. Mm-hmm. Your sacrifice is about trust. It's the trust that this leader to whom I'm choosing to follow, he won't let me down. And that's what allows you to become married. I had the word married earlier this morning. And in the word married, I saw sort of like things coming together. We often think about married in the sense of a covenant done. But there's a part where there are people who are married, but they're like oil and water. When they're in the glass, they are apart. But there's a place where people are married, and you don't see where the oil and the water begin or end, because they're all becoming one. But that is a place where people choose to give up self. And it is the place, it's akin to the decision for one to trust God. Many of us are struggling because we don't trust God. Everything in our lives we are afraid of falling because we are the ones holding it. The moment you learn to trust God with things and He holds them for you, you're actually set free. You're actually a lighter. Come to me, all you are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. And I think God takes all these things that laden us, and He takes them off our backs, and He carries them for us. And all He says, trust and obey. So it's realizing the bliss, the joy that comes if one can harness the faith
to let go.
To let go there is a place of transition. There is a point of transition when you're holding on to something and letting go. There are two different states. Many of us, the place of holding, we understand because you see your strength holding it. You hold it with your strength. Now, the transformation of mind from one strength to trust, it seems it's a hard transition because one says, what if I let go and die? But there's one who said, it's written. And they act simply because it is written. And if they manage to master the faith, to let go, and they're not consumed, they are saved.
They'll fly.
They are freed.
My soul
Because no longer do they spend their energies holding on.
trust in him.
They are free.
The waves and wind still know his name.
That's the reason why we can do this podcast every week. Give other people our lives situation, and they can't afford to take off 2 days in a week for this podcast. The only reason we did it is we're able to exercise faith and then saw the faithfulness of God and learned to walk by faith. There's a place where you exercise your faith, but then there's a place where it becomes your way of life. And that same place is the place I believe you had to go through of letting go of self, that you may be married with your husband.
For a greater purpose.
And I believe it's that marriage that allows you to hear when he has need. Now I dare say that is the highest expression of a helper suitable. The one who helps even when they haven't been asked
for help.
Because their heart is tuned
to the right frequency.
To the right frequency of service. But it's also a challenge upon us that are we so alive to God's need that you don't need to first be told.
Wow.
You do God's work before you are even asked.
But that can only happen when you're not showing up at the pool on Sunday. That cannot happen if you're just showing up one day.
Yeah.
Because who knows, the day that you choose to show up, there might be lots of noise.
Yeah.
And you will not hear.
Yeah.
That happens when you, even as I say this, I'm really saying this to myself. That happens when you choose to stay, and this is figuratively, when you choose to stay in the secret place. that is when you'll be able to hear God's heartbeat and act before He even tells you what to do.
That's actually what intimacy means. And it's so sad. The most times when you hear people think of intimacy, they think about sex. But there's an intimacy where you know God's heart. You hear God's need even before He asks you. But it's the same thing with your partner, where you can hear before.
Break my heart for what breaks yours. Everything I have for the kingdom's cause. Show me how to love like you have loved me. That is a song that I used to sing at a certain point in my life, and I never really understood what it really meant. And I think God used to look at me and say, look at this child of mine.
Mm.
I can see that she desires to focus on the things that are pertinent to me. But she's in the wrong place. I cannot have this engagement with her where she is. I just cannot. She is so far away. She is so far away.
Imuka,
Mukama imuka echoto change chikuita leka kalosa ako kusinza kange kambuke chitiwacho
chisibuneona. Imuka,
Mukama imuka echoto change chikuita leka kalosa ako kusinza kwange kambuke chitiwacho kachibuneona.
I didn't ask. How are you?
How else can I be? How else can I be? I am blessed. I am so blessed and so loved and so favored.
Amen.
And what can I bring? I have nothing to give.
Yeah.
For everything I have is already His. All I have is already His. Most I can do is just wake up every morning and show up. Just show up.
How do you feel about the shortest episode in history?
I'm not sure it's the shortest, but I think I have learned to understand the time. And to know when it's time to call it a podcast.
It's quite interesting. It's quite interesting that I hear these podcasts first when I'm editing. In these moments, I'm a vessel And it's always interesting. It's a time when you're previewing for editing and see how it fits together.
It's weird.
Yet in the moment, you simply flow. And that's how our lives ought to be lived.
True.
In a way that doesn't make sense in the moment, except the conviction in our hearts that that's the right move. And eventually when you look back to your life, you're like, oh wow.
Everything was
See what
building
the
up
Lord
to
has
this
done.
moment.
Yes. God set you up. God set me up.
Oh, and he's a master setup.
Yes. I love you, sweetheart.
I love you too.